Sometimes life strips a man of everything that gives him meaning until all he's left with is loss, a broken heart, and a key to a place he never asked for. For Noah Briggs, a once proud project manager and loving husband, that key led to his grandfather's old cabin in the northern woods. It was a rotting, sagging shack the family once called a death trap, and for years Noah had vowed never to set foot there. But when his wife Sarah's life was stolen by a merciless illness, and his job evaporated 2 weeks later in a round of layoffs that felt as cruel as it was cold, Noah had no choice. With eviction notices piling up and no money left to fight the tide, he loaded his meager belongings into an aging car and told his 8-year-old son Milo that they were going on an adventure. Milo, still mourning his mother's absence with the wide-eyed silence of a child forced to grow up too soon, pressed his face to the window as the suburbs slipped away into farmland and then into endless, looming forest. For Noah, each mile felt heavier than the last. He knew survival meant swallowing pride, leaning on whatever scraps of family legacy remained, and somehow convincing Milo that the nightmare of their new life was something close to hope. And so, when they pulled into the overgrown clearing where the cabin leaned crooked under a canopy of ancient pines, father and son began a story neither could have imagined. A story of hidden codes, buried archives, and a fortune disguised as a mystery that had been waiting for them beneath the moss for decades. The first night in the cabin was a war between exhaustion and unease. Inside, the air smelled of damp wood and decades of neglect. Water stains spidered across the walls, floorboards groaned with every step, and the musty shadows seemed to whisper of secrets better left undisturbed. Noah patched holes in the roof with trembling hands, fought the failing propane refrigerator into sputtering life, and built a fire in the massive stone fireplace, the only part of the house that seemed strong enough to defy collapse. Milo, clutching the stuffed elephant his late mother had given him, wandered from room to room as if searching for some trace of the warmth their old life once held. That night the boy asked why they had never visited his great-grandfather Ezra, a man Noah had barely spoken of since childhood. Noah hesitated, torn between the truth that Ezra was a bitter recluse who had alienated the family, and the softer story a child needed to hear. He chose the softer version, telling Milo that sometimes people let disagreements last too long. But even as he spoke, Noah's eyes drifted to a faded photo on the mantel, a young Ezra standing stern beside the cabin, his expression sharp but his gaze filled with secrets. Something in that picture gnawed at Noah's nerves, as though his grandfather had built this place not simply to live in isolation, but to guard something bigger. That night, when the forest wind clawed at the windows and a distant howl echoed across the trees, Noah lay awake knowing two truths. He had no other choice but to stay, and the cabin's silence wasn't empty. It was hiding something. The discovery came the next week, delivered by a red fox darting through the trees with Milo chasing behind. While Noah wrestled with broken shingles on the roof, Milo wandered farther than usual, his small sneakers crunching over damp leaves until the forest opened into a clearing. There, hidden beneath layers of moss and tangled roots, lay a rectangular depression in the ground, too straight, too deliberate to be natural. Milo scraped at the soil with his hands, revealing thick planks bound by iron hinges and a rusted handle. When Noah finally caught up, his heart nearly stopped at the sight of his son standing beside what looked like a buried cellar door. Parental instinct screamed danger, yet curiosity burned hotter than fear. Against his better judgment, Noah yanked at the iron ring, and with a groan like a beast disturbed from sleep, the door cracked open. Cold, stale air rolled up from stone steps leading into darkness. But darkness wasn't all, because at the bottom glimmered a faint electric glow. Someone had wired this hidden space. Someone had been here before, and as Noah and Milo descended, their flashlight beams cutting across dust and stone, they stepped into a room that would rip apart everything Noah thought he knew about his family. The chamber wasn't a root cellar. It was a workshop, a laboratory, a place humming with the ghosts of decades-old secrets. Shelves lined with surveying tools and geological samples, filing cabinets marked with codes, and in the center, like the relic of another age, a film projector surrounded by reels labeled in careful handwriting. Family memories, Code 7, survey records. Each reel whispered that Ezra Briggs hadn't been a hermit at all. He had been a man working in silence on something far larger than his family ever guessed. Curiosity won over fear that evening. Noah threaded one of the reels into the projector, the machine whirring to life with surprising ease after decades of silence. Onto the makeshift sheet stretched across the wall flickered images of a younger Ezra, working the land, walking the property, but never idly. Every gesture, every pause felt intentional. He pointed to landmarks, held up fingers in coded sequences, and lingered on strange rock formations. Milo, perceptive beyond his years, whispered, "Dad, he's leaving us messages." And Noah realized it was true. These weren't family films, they were instructions disguised as memories. Ezra had buried information inside innocent-looking reels, hiding a record of decades of surveying, experimentation, and coded communication. The deeper Noah explored, the more astonishing it became. Files revealed patents for environmental technologies years ahead of their time. Sustainable mining methods, soil restoration techniques, water purification systems. Letters with government seals hinted at disputes over mineral rights. Geological samples proved the land beneath their feet wasn't just ordinary forest floor, but a treasure trove of rare earth elements, critical to industries worth billions. And then came the most shocking revelation of all. Ezra had documented proof that corporations were already using variations of his work, without credit, without payment, enriching themselves on the back of stolen ideas. What had seemed like the lonely life of a bitter old man was actually the calculated, hidden war of an innovator fighting against industries too powerful to face openly. And now, with the cellar open and the reels unlocked, that battle had passed to Noah and Milo. Days turned into weeks as father and son returned to the cellar, each time uncovering more of Ezra's hidden brilliance. The projector wasn't just a tool, it was the key to decoding a vast archive. With Milo's quick eyes spotting hidden alignment marks, they discovered entire layers of film invisible without the proper setup. Home movies that once showed harmless garden work now revealed coded hand signals mapping mineral deposits. Casual strolls across the land actually documented wildlife habitats, water sources, and environmental data with scientific precision. Piece by piece, a picture emerged. Ezra Briggs hadn't been running from family. He had been preparing for them. He knew they would one day need his work, his patents, his legal strategies to fight against corporations that had stolen from him and countless other families in the region. One film unveiled survey data that glowed like a treasure map, rare earth deposits, gold veins, and minerals worth tens of millions, hidden under 47 acres that Noah had nearly dismissed as worthless woodland. But Ezra's genius wasn't just in finding wealth, it was in protecting it. Every reel, every note, every locked cabinet had been designed to shield the legacy until the right moment. And as Noah listened to Ezra's voice on old recordings, calm, methodical, warning of corporate greed and urging his heirs to be strong, he realized his grandfather hadn't left him a broken cabin at all. He had left him an empire buried beneath soil, paper, and celluloid, waiting for the right hands to uncover and defend it. But uncovering the truth was only half the battle. With each new document, Noah saw the scale of the war Ezra had prepared them for. Corporate giants worth billions had already integrated his great-grandfather's inventions into their industries: carbon capture, soil remediation, clean water technology, while Ezra's name rotted in obscurity. Legal memos revealed these companies owed damages in the hundreds of millions, maybe more, and Ezra's attorneys had laid out a strategy to reclaim those rights. Yet victory wouldn't come easy. The corporations controlling these resources would fight with everything they had: money, lawyers, influence. And still, Ezra had planned for this. Buried deeds with hidden clauses, timed to activate when sustainable technology became both possible and necessary, gave Noah legal claim to not just his 47 acres, but mineral rights stretching across miles of the valley. Ezra hadn't been eccentric. He had been a visionary, decades ahead of his time, and he had sacrificed everything: family ties, companionship, even reputation, to ensure his descendants could finish the mission. Milo listened wide-eyed as Noah explained the enormity of their inheritance. They weren't just owners of a crumbling cabin. They were the inheritors of an arsenal, a legacy of innovation, law, and justice powerful enough to shake industries to their core. And while Noah's hands trembled at the thought of the battles ahead, his son's small voice steadied him. "Dad, if Grandpa Ezra fought alone, maybe now it's our turn to fight together." The turning point came with Alina Petten, the town librarian who revealed she had secretly assisted Ezra years ago. Sharp silver-haired and armed with maps and records, she told Noah and Milo what they had already begun to suspect. Ezra's work wasn't only for his family, it was for the world. Mining companies had cheated dozens of local families out of mineral rights, just as they had cheated the Briggs family. Ezra's maps and codes weren't just treasure trails, they were roadmaps for justice. And now, armed with documents, patents, and allies, Noah and Milo faced a choice: keep the discovery hidden and live quietly off their inheritance, or rise to the challenge and finish Ezra's fight. The more Noah studied the legal documents, the clearer it became. Ezra had written this story for them long before they arrived. He had anticipated corporate suppression, political obstacles, even betrayal. He had left not just resources, but strategies. And at the heart of it all, one truth rang louder than any promise of money. This wasn't only about survival. It was about proving that wealth and responsibility could exist together. Ezra had dedicated his life to showing that humanity didn't have to destroy the earth to prosper. And now, that responsibility had landed on the shoulders of a grieving father and his brave, determined son. The burden was terrifying, but it was also a gift, one that gave their broken lives purpose again. So tonight, as the fire burned low in the cabin, and Milo drifted to sleep with his stuffed elephant tucked under his arm, Noah stared into the flames and felt something he hadn't allowed himself to feel since Sarah's death: hope. Not just hope for survival or a steady roof over their heads, but hope for a future where his son could inherit more than loss. Ezra Briggs had hidden his legacy in reels of film, coded maps, and dusty files, waiting for the day when someone would be desperate enough to listen. And now that day had come. Noah knew the road ahead would be dangerous. Powerful corporations would come for them, lawyers would circle, and greed would test every ounce of their resolve. But he also knew they weren't alone anymore. They had Ezra's work, Eleanor's guidance, and most of all, each other. This wasn't just a story about an old cabin or a forgotten family feud. It was about a father and son who lost everything, only to discover that what they inherited was bigger than money, bigger than land, bigger than themselves. They inherited a mission. And as Noah whispered a promise to his sleeping son, that they would finish what Ezra started, the cabin's shadows seemed to lean in as if listening. Because sometimes the greatest legacies are the ones buried in silence, waiting for the right hands to dig them up. And if you've stayed with me through this story, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, drop a like, and share this video with someone who loves a tale of hidden legacies and second chances. Because tomorrow, I've got another story for you, and trust me, you won't want to miss it.